Well, ladies and gentlemen, my name is John Kacarab, and I have been doing a class on the national status, the hows, the whats, and the whys. Class normally runs 8 hours, but I'm going to do an abbreviated class on October 29th here at the park in Pasadena. Now, all of those who attend are going to get some special things that I normally don't send out, that are extra in parts of the class. But you got to be here to get them. You got to sign in, you got to leave me your phone number and your email address, and then if you come to the meeting at the park, then I will give you these extra books. We're going to give you some citizen handbooks. We're going to be giving you some other publications that fully document everything I'm going to talk about during that period of time. So I'm going to cram 8 hours into an hour, hour and a half, okay? So it's kind of intense. It's one of the reasons why I want to give you the material so that you have something to refer to over time. The bottom line is, did you know that you have a dual political status? Everybody is a U.S. citizen. How do I know? Because that's what you always sign up for. Every form that you've ever signed for, you have to sign under penalty of perjury. Are you a U.S. citizen? Are you a resident? And you've always been conditioned to answer that question, yes. Now, many people say, well, I've never heard of the national status before. And most people don't think they've ever been asked if they're a national. But they literally have. If you fill out a passport application, they used to ask you on the passport application if you were a national. But they don't do that anymore. They do it in a surreptitious way. But if you look on your passport, it says that it's for United States citizens / nationals. Well, what's a national? Nobody's ever asked you if you were a national. So you don't know what that is. So you say, well, I don't know what that is, but I know I'm a United States citizen. Okay? Is that a good thing? What do you think? You ever filled out an ATF 4473 form? If you ever went to buy a gun, you've been asked if you were a national, but again, you didn't recognize what it was. Why is it important? Well, there's only two statuses that we actually have. You're either a slave or you're free. Would you agree with that? Do you think there's any wiggle room between those terms? Well, one status is free and one status is a slave. Do you ever have to apply for anything you're going to do? Do you need a license? Are you required to register anything? Do you need permission for everything that you're going to do? What status does that put you in? Are you free or are you a slave? Let me put it this way. If you don't pay your income taxes, what happens? If you don't pay your property taxes, what happens? If you're caught with an automobile and you don't have a license, what happens? What if you're not registered with plates? What happens? It's a serious matter, and everybody is putting up with it. Why are you doing that? Is there an answer? Well, there is, and that's what we're going to kind of cover here briefly for a minute here, if I can work out my paperwork. Here are some court cases that I want you to know about that give you the real status of what's going on. Now, everybody sings the songs out there, thank God I'm American, at least I know I'm free. And Adam recently has been talking about we really have the power, and we do. The people always have the power of revolution. Do you want it to get to that? Do you really want to go to war? Because that's what it's going to take. Because they're not just going to walk away. Let me read you some cases here. This one here is United States v. Cruikshank. We have in our political system a government of the United States, a government of each of the several states. Each one of these governments is distinct from the others, and each has citizens of its own. So which citizenship do you have? Do you have the one of the United States or the one of the several states? Has anybody ever asked you that question? Have you heard anything like that in school? Why have you not heard this? There's another court case, Tashiro v. Jordan. There is a citizenship of the United States. It's called a 14th Amendment citizen, and a citizenship of the state. There's a court case right there that's blatantly saying that you have two statuses. How come you don't know about it? There's a difference between the privileges and immunities, which we call civil rights, belonging to the citizens of the United States, which we call a 14th Amendment citizen as such, and those belonging to the citizens of each state. That court case is Rushstrat versus the people. One more case for you. Therefore, and this is Wheeling Steel Corporation versus Fox. This is a United States Supreme Court case. Therefore, the United States citizen is a citizen of the federal corporation residing in one of the states of the Union, and they're classified as property and a franchise of the federal government as an individual entity. And there's a maxim about property. You're property of the federal government. How can they call you property? Because you've answered those two questions that you've been conditioned to answer since you were born. That you're a citizen of the United States and a resident. What are they really asking you? I reveal those answers in our class. You're going to get to know all this stuff. If citizens are classified as property of the federal government, and we know that the maximum law is that property can't own property, how do you change it? We're going to get into detail on that. When you get done, I'm going to send you documentation that's fully published, a couple books, and a handbook that's going to give you exceptional detail on how all this happens and how you can set yourself free. Now, once you do that, the government does not have authority to enforce codes. You got to understand that the codes, quote codes, are not law. They're representations of law. But they are all under the auspices of Congress, not the United States of America. You can change all this. It's up to you, and you have the right under the law of nations to determine your political status. They can't tell you who you are. They have to ask who you are. If they're telling you who you are, then that's tyranny. They don't like to be known as open tyrants, do they? But if they ask you and you volunteer for it, and you're subject to taxes and codes and punishment, and you can be treated and the laws can be changed on you at will, and they can go after your kids and completely separate you because you don't own your kids. That's how CPS can come in and take your children, and they pass any rule and regulation because you're a slave. You're a serf. You are a feudal serf. And we're going to prove that to you in great detail in class. But if you want all this material, you got us come on October 29th and attend the class. Sign up here and you stay in the class. You don't come 5 minutes and leave and say, I'm going to send me the material. You're going to have to go through the class and do it. But this is really a good experiment because I'd like to cut the 8 hours down. If I can get all this stuff across to you and then give you a support group that you could attend afterwards, wouldn't you want to do this? Don't you want to find out about this? That there's actually a status that you have already that you didn't know about? Come to the class. I'm looking forward to seeing you.